All right, it's jpeg2RAW show number 23, and tonight, last time, we're going over the December 2017, best of 2017 images, AD. We had a bunch submitted, so we kind of broke it into the finalists, the beginners, and now the ones in our regulars group. So this will be the last one of that. Then we'll get back on track in January and February and eventually March. Before we start that, I want to let everybody know how to enter. If you want to enter into the monthly contest, you can either do it through our website, which is jpeg2RAW.com/contest. And there you have a link to either the regular group or the beginner group. And there's nothing magical about either one. Everybody's welcome to join the beginner, the regular group. The beginner group is just made so if you feel like you're a beginner and you want to be with other beginners, that's a group. But I'd recommend everybody join the regular group too. This month we have a theme in both of them. The theme for the regular group is Dream. I guess I should have put quotes around that. And the theme for the beginner group is Outdoor. I say that, showing the webpage, but most people are going to join through the Facebook group, either the regular one or the beginner one, and just go to Facebook and search for jpeg2RAW, and you'll see our groups. The album to enter is always at the top of the page, is pinned to the top, so you can just enter right there with instructions if you're not sure how to enter it, with instructions posted in that post on here's how to enter, a step-by-step guide to do that. So go out there and enter. You have to the end of the month, and then we'll start a new one the following month. All right, so with that said, tonight we're going to go over some images that I picked that are from, I think these are images, AD, that we have not seen in any of the monthly contests, and a few new people that I don't know if we have gone over any of their images yet. So let me get it ready to go to the first one. Uh-oh. I didn't have that in the right spot. Just a second. All right. Up first is this one from Millen, our good friend Millen, who says, he titled it Misty Forest. He says, this guy came out of the fog while I was experimenting with some shots at this place. He was coming from mushroom gathering, but with his bag, bucket, and knife in hand, sure looks scary.
Yeah, so I read so I looked at this photo. I don't usually, so the way we get these, the way Mike does these is really cool. He does a little presentation thing, and then he puts the caption for me to look at the bottom. But a lot of times when I first open the thing, I just see the photo, but I don't see the caption. I have to actually move the screen up to see the caption itself. So a lot of times I like to just look at the photo and stare at it for a couple of minutes just to say, like, what kind of feelings am I getting from this photo? And immediately when I see this guy, like, carrying a bag and a knife in a bucket, I'm like, whoa, that's like creepy, man. But then, of course, my head is like, all right, I'm sure this is like a guy who's like, he just was digging up clams or digging up mushrooms or something, and this is not supposed to be a creepy image. And then, of course, then I read the thing from Millen, and I'm like, oh, man. So the guy who took the photo had the same feeling. And of course, the fog and the trees and the forest. I mean, too many horror films we've probably all seen that give us that feeling. This is a wow image for me from Millen. This image really, like, he submits all the time. We see a lot of his images. And to me, this image really, I really like this a lot. And the only way that this maybe could have been any better is if he took a photo without the guy in there, and took the creepiness factor out of it and just made it like this path in a misty forest into the fog. Because I don't know about you, Mike, but man, I just love the opportunity to take a photo like this. This is atmosphere and just, oh man, everything. But I like his color process here. I'm not a huge fan of the dude himself. Other than that, though, I wish he was obscured a little bit more, I think, because of his fluorescent jacket color. A little bit
further back into the fog.
Yeah, and I think he muted it quite well. I know he did some post on it to mute it. But this is one of the best images he's ever submitted, I think. I just really like this image a lot, and it has that atmosphere and look to it, and I really can't find fault with it. It's exactly, what he wrote down here made complete sense. And then I saw he took this with a kit lens. I'm like, come on, dude, it looks great. And it's a kit lens. There's no chromatic aberration or anything around all those branches, which is usually a major thing with kit lenses. You'll see around all of the pine branches and things where the white fog is behind there. A lot of times it'll have the little pink and purple outlines all around it, and it looks nice and clean.
Yeah, no, great image,
good.
Millen.
Yeah, good job, Millen.
And he always gives us a decent write-up, too. So we appreciate that, too, Millen.
Yes, he does. Yep.
All right, next up is this one from Tim Olson.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Yes, I would say Yultson. Yultson.
And I'm not sure if you have submitted before, Tim. I'm sorry, but I don't remember seeing an image from Tim.
Nope, this looks new to me.
Yeah, and he says took this image for a 52-week challenge he did last year. This year. I really enjoyed coming up with the idea and putting it all together for a fine image. This is a 4-shot HDR image merged in Lightroom.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Oh, he had 2 strobe lights turned on the low modeling light pointed toward the ceiling.
Yeah, so he's got like the strobes, I think, like I have, that have a modeling light in them, I think. Yeah. So you can just have this low wattage modeling light. It just helps you kind of usually just see where your strobes are going to pop and get an idea. And sometimes you can use them for mood lighting, which I think he did here. It looks like there might have been one that was behind it. I mean, I love all the technical information behind this. Of course, this is the regulars group, so I can't really treat it like you're a beginner. The only question I would probably ask, since you're going down a technical road here and didn't really tell me what you're going for with the image, is why you did a 4-shot HDR. Just putting it out there, I would never shoot 4 brackets. I would shoot 5 or 3 or 9, but 4 is a little strange unless you pulled some information in out of a larger bracket set. Most cameras don't shoot 4 brackets as far as I know. Mm-hmm. But interesting. And he did most of this in Photoshop CC and Lightroom CC, but that's cool. I think it's a great image. It's, Old West. It's definitely got that flavor. If that's what you were going for, that's awesome. It's interesting. The writing. Oh, so all right, I'll tell you what's really weird about this. So when I look at the image, and Mike, you can jump in here anywhere too. Yeah. When I look at the image, I'm drawn to the watermark. And when I look at the watermark, then I'm drawn to the upside down writing. And now I want to know, now I'm out of your image, man. I'm gone. You took a great image here. Now
upside down writing.
Yeah, I'm looking at the writing on the side of the box going, explosives. What is that? And now you've lost my interest in the image. So it's one of those things where just be careful with your watermarks. Like on a show like this, if you're submitting to a show for somebody to talk about, don't put watermarks on your image. Allow us to enjoy your image. We're going to talk about you. We're going to try to pronounce your name properly. If you have something to say, as far as, we're not going to do an advertisement for you, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to help you with your photography. That's the main goal. Right. But if you said, I'm Tim Yultson from Tim Yultson Photography, we will say that when we're talking about it. But I just think in an image like this, I probably would have done something to maybe clone out the writing or somehow made darkened it, or you got to be careful there, because sometimes you'll look at that and you'll be lost in that kind of look too. But he's got the background really mysterious. I like that. I love all the pieces here. It's just Americana at its best, the Wild West sort of look. I really dig all of that. I like what he did with the lights. I like the post-processing. It's just sometimes we do our border checks, and this is kind of things that we look at. I would have tried to make some way to make that box flip upside down, that crate, and used it so the writing was right side up with the explosives and made it part of the image. It's kind of one of those things that we see a lot on this show. If you don't watch every week, I talk about it a lot of times, is, there's a lot going on in the image. We got the scene set up, and then we got the box and the background and all this kind of stuff. And you want to be very careful with taking focus away from what the main thing is. And having an upside down writing on a box doesn't make much sense for everything else that you have here in the image. Everything else seems to be right side up, and to me, then I look at it and I'm like, oh, this isn't a table; it's like a staged thing. Yeah. Like, it's. And so I would just like to see a little bit more time put into that, I think. But other than that, he's right on with everything else. Looks great.
And I think we see that a lot, AD, with the watermark is such a big distraction from the image itself. It really draws your eye there. You're right. If you're submitting it to a photo contest, I understand when you put your watermark there, just make sure it's not pulling people's eyes away from what you intended them to see.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for just about everything. Yeah. And I just don't think when you're submitting to something like this that you have to put a watermark on it. I think there are plenty other ways to, and if you have to put a watermark, if you just can't live without it, then I generally like to see people put like a lower bar like underneath the photo and put their watermark there if they have to do it, or make it very transparent, so it's very faint, but it's still there and watermarked. And honestly, you're not protecting yourself from anything.
Oh yeah.
With simple tools that are out there today, anybody can remove your watermark in less than 10 seconds. So it's not a difficult job. In fact, I could put a whole new front on that box, and that would fix the problem with the writing on it and steal your photo. I mean, so that's basically, you got to be careful with taking the focus away from a beautiful photo like this one. I think you could have cropped this up a little bit. You could add the ICC 1.4 in there, and like Mike said, darken it up a little bit and maybe cropped it up a little bit and made a square crop out of this because it's very close. I've been noticing, I don't know if it's you, Mike, or if it's me, but have you noticed like in the last couple of weeks, we had a lot of like 4x3 submissions. Like it's like they're almost like they're not square, but they're not traditional 8x10s either. And I wondered if that's a new craze that's going on right now out there. But
I don't know.
It's. And the short of it is great photo. And again, just nitpicking little things like, the watermark and the writing on the front of the box, I think takes away from the overall beautiful image that you've captured here. So
and outside of that, you mentioned the 4-shot HDR, like you have always shot in odd numbers, anywhere from 3 to 9 is what I've shot. So what the fourth one was for, and maybe he was doing HDR also, because I imagine this shot, the thing that you really need HDR for was that lantern.
Well, and you need HDR because you got a bright light source and you got darks in the back and you got a lot of detail on that gun, and you want to bring out the shadows. I mean, mainly what I've always used HDR for is to reel in the highlights so that they're not blown out, and to be able to boost the shadows without noise. And almost always you would shoot -2, 0, and +2, or -4, -2, 0, +2, +4. That's 5 brackets. And it's very odd for me to see like, where is your middle bracket? Like, where was your middle exposure? Or did you just skip the middle exposure? Maybe it's something I need to learn. Maybe it's this new technique that I haven't heard of yet. I'm pretty adept at HDR. I've been doing it since 2007, across many cameras and across many pieces of software. And so for me, it's you put down a lot of technical stuff, so I'm automatically drawn to, I wonder why we did that. And I'm seeing, I'm looking at his exposure set, and it says 2, 4, 8, and I know we need to move on here. And 15-second exposures at f6.3, ISO 400. A lot of that is confusing to me in HDR. I would never shoot in HDR at ISO 400 ever. I would almost always shoot it at
your lowest ISO.
At ISO 100. F6.3 he did for depth of field, which is fine. That's exactly what you want to do, and that's why you would use HDR in this in a case like this so you could get the light range that you need and just fix your aperture where it's at. I don't understand the ISO 400, I guess.
Generally, I don't know. My experience has been whenever you're doing HDR, you introduce noise in the first place. So you want as clean. You want to start as clean as you can.
Yeah, generally that's the thing, because noise does stack. Yeah. And so and then you remove noise with the program, but it's not ideal, and it tends to mush out a lot of, like, the bokeh in the back of this image looks a little mushy and a little kind of, like it doesn't have the detail, and the wood doesn't have the detail in the grain. That looks a little mushy to me as well. So I just would be very careful. I do 32-bit HDR for that very reason, where I don't actually allow the program to tone compress. I actually take the 32-bit RAW file and then process it natively in Lightroom or in Luminar or whatever program I'm using. And that avoids that problem of tone compression as well. So a lot of programs will take the super wide RAW file and they'll crunch it before they allow any program to play with it down to 16 bits. And so that chops off a lot of data. Now, the programs are pretty good at making assumptions of what looks good, but often there's too much noise, or you don't get the range that you were originally going for. So I only shoot my HDRs in 32-bit, and I very rarely even shoot HDR anymore, unless I'm in a situation like this, which is where I would use it, where I have this light range. So I'm curious on the 4-shot. That's something that we've talked about before. I want to just throw it out there. If you have questions about processes like this, please ask them over in the group, and we'll try to address them on the show. If not in the show, I'll try to do it right on the Facebook group if you ask, and you can always tag me, or even if you don't, I'm usually looking at that. I see all the posts. I get notifications for the group, so I try to nose around in there. I lurk a lot. I don't post a lot unless people ask me to. I've always been that way. So if you have questions, and I want to throw this out there
especially
too.
The beginner group. Yeah, especially the beginner group.
We got people watching tonight, so I want to ask this. And we'll talk about it maybe at the end of the show as a post-show thing. Okay. But how many people out there who are watching like to name their photographs? Like, they like to come up with a name that represents the photograph. And what is your, like, I'm interested to hear from people in the chat and around what maybe their why they do that. Like, okay. I know why I do it, but I'd like to know why others.
Because like Millen and Sue, we've looked at, Millen named his. Yeah. And I think maybe some of the others that we're going to look at did too.
Right. Some people don't ever do that, and some people are against it. I've met people who are against it, and that's fine. I'm just curious. I like to know. So, yeah.
We'll talk about that later on. I do want 2 comments from the chat room over on Facebook that I don't know if you've seen it from Willie that are kind of funny that I thought I'd work into here. AD, you can't steal his photo. He has a loaded gun. And then he said, and going along with the card game here, Willie also says he started with 3 exposure and raised you 1.
Oh, geez. Willie Ford, that guy.
Who's also a great photographer himself.
Absolutely.
Willie. All right, let's move on to the next one from, I think this is a new photographer to the group also, Jessica. What's her last name? Jessica. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to go with Jessica because I can say that correctly.
Well, let me look. Gutierrez.
Okay. Thank you, AD. And no she says, this is her boys last summer playing in my grandparents' pond. You know, typical boys, summertime fun, blue jeans, no shirt, casting, sticks or whatever else out into a pond. Yeah, boys do. As I go out and start walking in beautiful weather we're starting to have here, there's it's been raining and there's little puddles all over the place along the trail, and each one of them have just tons of tadpoles in them. And every little boy that walks by it has to stop and just is mesmerized by the tadpoles. And it's awesome to see. With that said, it's not a bad image in my opinion. I typically like to see face photos more, but you still get a sense of what's going on here.
Yeah, I think when I first looked at this image, immediately I wanted to move the whole scene a little bit over to the left move the boys to the left side of the image a little bit more, and see a little bit more of the pond. It's again a very targeted image where the pond is dividing the whole image in half, and the one boy is right in the center, and that's kind of, I just think it, again, with the composition, but it's a great moment as far as capturing a wonderful moment. Totally made me think of, just playing in the pond as a kid, or playing alongside the pond, or in a creek, or wherever. So I totally got the point across, and I was happy to see too. Another new face in the group. And this, I just wanted to say too to Tim, the last person that we looked at, and please submit some more images, man, because this is what this is all about. Don't take me asking questions about HDR and all this kind of stuff badly. It's always just for other people to learn and whatnot.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
Mike always expects me to say something about every image.
Gotta say something.
I have to come up with things. But yeah, I really like this image a lot. I thought the mood was cool. I thought there was like a cool sun, kind of more of a vintage look to the side of the image. She's got kind of like a sun flare, or even if there was something out of focus very close to the lens there, I think is very cool as well. It gives it that kind of summer fun feel to the overall processing. So I like that as well.
Very good. Okay, next up is this image from Jeff Sharts.
Yes.
So he says, with this one, when visiting an old Catholic church in San Antonio, my grandson grumbled as we entered, as you would expect all grandchildren to do, as they having go here feeling as though he would be bored to tears. It was a weekday. The church was empty. Jordan sat in the pew ahead of me in awe, surprised that such magnificent detail could be achieved. I captured his look of wonder, and the results were very pleasing.
Yeah, I like this image a lot. I thought this was, when I first saw it, I'll be honest with you, I mean, you knew it was a church immediately. He's got that bokeh nicely. And one of the key things that we talk a lot about is composition and the struggle between the background and the foreground of the image, or the subject of the image in the background. And so this is a perfect example of an image where the background, it could be toned down a little bit, I think, as far as like the contrast goes, but just in the very basics of the image, this is what you want to start going for. Is he's got the background so we can recognize what it is, but it isn't fighting with the foreground as much as if he would have shot this at, say, f/16, where it would have been a lot clearer. In the background would have been a lot clearer, and there would have been a lot more what I call noise in the image, and that's just a lot of things going on that's fighting with the subject. And he captured, even though it's from the side, and we talked about in the last photo. I like to see stuff from the front as well. This image makes me want to see his full expression. So
it does, because one thing for me, without the description, I don't know if I'd have caught that's what was happening. That he was in awe here, because I didn't get quite enough of the side of the face for me. Yeah,
and that was it with me too. And I did look at the image, and I had one impression when I looked at it, and then I read it and had a different impression. And this is one of the things that, as I do these photos for people, and you often say, I have feedback for stuff, and you like finding out what I have to say. A lot of times that's part of me. When I'm looking at these images for the first time, I try to look at the photo first and then read the caption afterwards. And while doing all of that, I really have to be outside myself and kind of realize the feelings or how I'm changed when I'm doing that process as well. So I try to be cognizant of doing that when I'm looking at your images. So the descriptions are great. When you guys describe what's happening in the photo, that's fine. But that's not what we're looking for when we ask you to describe your photo. If you're in the beginners group, you can always put your camera settings and ask questions right in your descriptions about your camera settings. But what's most important to me, even with beginners or regulars, is that you tell me why you pressed the shutter button. Like, in what you're trying to achieve with your photo. And that's very hard to do. I know it's, I always ask people this, and I don't want to cut down the people that enter, because this is hard to do. And we're still going to accept your entries even if you don't do it. So don't worry. But it helps me help you if I know what you're going for. So I kind of, read between the lines here. I kind of get what he's going for. So that's what Mike and I are basing our feedback off from. And I think that the one thing I get out of the image, the more I look at it, is that I want to see his full expression. And so that's as much as I can whittle it down to. I think it's a good moment. I just think it might have been better if it was a little bit more.
Because if you got it straight from the front, you wouldn't know what he was looking at.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. You couldn't frame it.
Right.
But if he moved more to his left and caught a little bit more of his face, two things are going to happen. We're going to see that expression more fully. He can still show that we're still going to identify the windows and the church in the background. But the other thing it's going to do is move the white table, the sacrament table, I think that's there. That's right there. It's going to remove that line right across the middle of your photo. That's kind of like pointing right at his nose.
Almost punch him in the face. Yeah.
Right. And that's going to help. That's going to help your overall composition, I think. And it's so hard, man. When I'm in the field, I can't tell you guys, every time we talk about photos, I know it comes off like, geez, how does he think of all this stuff while he's out and actually then take a good photo on top of all of that? Isn't it like mess with your brains? And you don't have to think about all of that stuff when you're out there. I mostly think about it when I'm culling my photos when I'm at home. Right. And I have I have hundreds of thousands of photos that I've never shown anybody because they
didn't work.
Right. I thought I was working when I was out there. And I've looked, I've gone back. I went back this last year. I went back to Yellowstone because my very first big trip was to Yellowstone National Park. I had the wrong equipment. I had the wrong everything. And then I went back with determination and purpose. There were still photos in that I messed up, that I missed the moment. But I also made back a lot of ground that I missed the first time. So I felt good that I'm like, yeah, we'll be going again.
Well, I'm sure all those years of you doing this and trying to get it right in the camera and then coming back and critiquing and your images and seeing where you didn't get it right in camera, that process continually improves what your work.
Yeah, and that's what it does is the voice in your head goes away after a while and things just start happening. And, I always tell people when you're on social media, you're on any internet thing and you're looking at, Trey Radcliffe's photos or you're looking at Colby Brown's photos, don't compare yourself. Don't look at them and say, man, they never take a bad photo because they have thousands of photos that suck too.
Yeah.
You just never see them.
Yeah.
So everybody does. Ansel Adams had thousands of photos you never saw.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Cristina says helps to shoot a few different angles of the subject you're capturing. That way you can decide.
Yep.
You can decide and see what works in post-processing.
Yeah, we're granted the greatest gift ever of digital that it's unlimited film, man. Use it up. So.
Yep. All right. Up next is this image, and I don't know why I got a string of three here from behind, but from Alicia Lawson, is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And let me pull her up. So I haven't been active in quite some time, mainly because of life, which that gets in the way of all of us. AD's going to be in the middle of a move here soon, but also pretty much because I just take photos of chickens all the time, and feel kind of weird about sharing. Hey, if that's what you're taking photos of, I'm sure you get some great photos of chickens. Feel free to share. Oh my God!
And there are people out there that are rabid for collecting that kind of stuff. So yeah, go with it. I mean, for sure.
This is one of the many chicks that hatched this year, she says.
Yeah, I like this image because it's not like normally what you see with little chicks. Like this is I'm not. If I was like we talked, and again, I want to hear from you guys about titling your photos. Because this kind of like is like, I don't want you to take my photo. Like no photos, like I'm walking away from you. I have mixed reactions about the image. I like it for some things. I think the composition is a little strange with the chick being so high. And again,
Yep.
in the image, in the focal plane being kind of like right in the, almost near the center. And then there's a bug or something flying across from
that was an easy clone. You could clone
right.
that out. Yep.
Yeah, and so here the subject is just this little chick is like, I'll have no part of you in your camera. Let's remove that little spot and kind of center it up a little bit more, or not center it more. Although this is a great image. I do want to mention this. This is a great image that would hold a lot of power if you did a square crop and put the chick dead center, because it's very symmetrical, except for the way that the chicken is walking away from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of artistic in itself. But right now it's not really in the thirds. It's kind of, the chick is in the thirds, but the focal plane is in a weird spot for me to compose the image. So it kind of has the overall balance of the image just kind of pushed to the upper right, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But I like the thought here. And if anything, Alicia, what you should learn from this is to submit more photos.
Yeah, let's see more chickens.
Right, exactly. Because we need stuff like this, for example, and to talk about and to help you learn and take this to a whole new art form. Who knows? Yep. There's people doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I was going through my photos yesterday and I saw some photos from the Carl Zeiss booth when we were at the PPE show in New York, which is the Pro Photo Expo. And Carl Zeiss brings all these lenses out that this artist draws these really cool tribal markings on the lenses. They look so cool. But I was just thinking about, like, if anybody said, well, I'm going to put tribal markings on my lenses, you'd think, well, that's a stupid idea. But then you see them and you're like, whoa, that looks cool, that's the coolest thing ever. And, so I think that's a good example of stuff like this. Don't feel just because that's what all that you shoot, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more. And you really got to run the gauntlet, so to speak, in when you get onto something like this, to really bring out the artistry in it. So I say more photos.
Most people don't know this, but when I was little, we used to raise chickens. We had about 50. We didn't have we weren't selling them to the public, but we used to have about 50 chickens, and we would always have these little chickens, and we'd put them in a little incubator or whatever, and I get to see them hatch. It was just, I love that that opportunity I had as a kid to be able to see all that and do that.
And Danny's parents, up or the cabin that we run, their land that they have 22 acres. We actually raise chickens as well, and we have literally dozens of farm fresh eggs every week.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you what, you never eat another store-bought egg once you've had like farm fresh eggs. They are amazing. If you like eggs, some people don't.
I love them. We had the farm fresh ones too. And the only mistake I made is I almost treated the chickens as my pet and named them, and that wasn't a good long-term strategy.
Yeah, we do. Some people take this the wrong way, but we do butcher some of the chickens. And it's a natural thing, and it has to be done. But we also raise and keep a lot of them going for a long time too. So it's just the way it is.
All right. Up next is one of my new favorite photographers who's out in chat right now, Cristina Binge.
Yes.
And I don't believe we saw this image during the year with this one that she took. Let's see, an image I took early morning in late October when the leaves were starting to fall. It's one of my favorite from last year.
Yeah, I like this image a lot. The only critique that I have for this image, and I think it is self-explanatory. It's a very artful image, shot in a very shallow depth of field, and the focal plane is perfect. The backlighting is perfect. Everything I like about it. In post, Christina, go the extra 0.1%. This is a 99.9 image. I would, if I was critiquing you as an apprentice, the one thing I would mention is do not allow yourself to miss the fact that your horizon is tilted slightly, and make sure that you straighten that up. And I would also take a thought at darkening up the one light spot that you have in the top of the image, because it is a little bit distracting. Now, what the horizon does when you have a tilted horizon in any landscape image is that it draws attention because it feels tilted. And when we feel that the ground is tilted, the viewer gets tension from that. And even though it's very slight and maybe no one would notice, if you think to yourself, well, I didn't even notice that. You did. Your subconscious notices it. And I will tell you that if you pay attention to little details like that, you'll start selling images. And that's the thing that I tell people when they're doing beautiful images like this, is just, it's the little teeny weeny things that will push it over the top.
And it's easy to miss when you're taking a photo. But if you use some of the things AD has mentioned before, they're available in Photoshop, Lightroom, and I'm sure every other, Luminar and every other program that can show you a horizontal line that you then can line up with that horizon and see if it's on there.
Yeah, and you know what I do a lot of times is I'll zoom in to the image, and you don't even have to use a tool. You just zoom in on the image and then move the image up to the edge of your monitor screen, which is perfectly straight. And you can just look at it and be like, oh, yeah, it's tilted on one side. And that's all you need to do. And then you can use the tools such as, like, if it's tilted on one side and not the other, or if it's curved a little bit, you can still get a balance. Like, I can see that it's slightly curved on the left-hand side in an upward motion of curving, and then a little lower on the right-hand side. But because it's not balanced between those two, like you're not curving around the horizon line evenly on both sides, it has a tendency to be leaning off to the right. And I don't want that distraction. I want to get lost in the front of this image and that leaf and that beautiful light and the shadows in the leaf. I don't want to be pulled away from any of that.
What I do like about it is it's the single leaf in the image.
Yeah.
And it's not, you see many fall shots of a leaf and that's all there is. But this is a leaf in an environment that is the only leaf. So you get the sense of fall and the
morning light, and the dew. Everything else about the photos, there's nothing wrong with it at all. This is just that border patrol thing that I often tell photographers who are trying to move into the fine art world, that you want to be cognizant of those things. Now, if you want there to be tension in this image, then you can leave it exactly the way it is. But it does create tension in the image, which is strange, and you might not notice it by just saying, being conscious of it, but your subconscious is what's important here. And those things, when you look at an image and you're like, I don't understand why everyone loves that image so much. A lot of times it's because all of those little things have been
worked together.
That's right. Yeah, it's a wonderful image. I want to see more, Christina. I always love your stuff. I still have one here that I want to do a little bit with down the road too. So I think it's coming up next show, maybe somewhere in here. So
yeah,
very cool.
All right, last image up is this one from Jonathan Wangling.
Wangelin, I think. I'm not sure. Wangelin. I don't know. Got me. I'm gonna go to your Facebook pages and do the pronunciation thing. If you don't have it on there, I can say anything I want.
And he says this is from a yearly calendar I do for a local shelter, and I like the bandana he's wearing that says "Life is good."
Yeah, it's awesome. It looks a little soft to me. I'm not sure if it is. Again, it could be Google Drive, and the fact that we're looking at a Facebook or an image that was maybe low res when we looked at it. It's a wonderful image. I think there's a lot going on behind the dog. I know it's probably your home. Here's one of those images where we have a lot of stuff going on one side of the image, and then there's other things going on like bright spots and dark spots, but there's nothing really there. It just wondered if there was maybe something here that would work for moving it around a little bit, and be cognizant of what you're showing in the background. The foreground is nailed. It looks great. It's funny, but it's warm. It's a dog photo, of course, which we all love. But now combine that with the background, make sure that our background isn't distracting or pulling away from us. But just keep doing it. Keep doing more. If anybody gets anything out of all this stuff, that's the main thing, is keep going. You guys are all amazing. And every week I see amazing images, and I'm inspired by what I see. So finding fault isn't what we're doing here. We're just basically
helping us all grow. Yep.
Creative nudges. They're just like, keep going. That's the main message. So.
All right, that was our last image, and that's the last of the 2017. Next time we do a show, I know we spent 3 shows on that, but there was a lot of images, and we'll be moving into the January images come next show. Before we head out, and before my computer crashes again, I'm sure y'all didn't notice that, but that one that crashed that I rebuilt, put a new CPU, new hard drive in it, just crashed again. Whoa. So something else is going on, and I did clone the drive, so it could be I copied over anything that was messed up. But before we head out and go into post-show, I want to mention that if you're not following AD over on thecreators.com, over on Patreon, you want to do that. You're in the process of moving, I know, and when you come back from all that, which may be April, maybe May, so we're in that time frame, you're going to have a brand new studio putting out a whole lot more stuff, right?
Yeah, not in May. I won't have a new studio by May, but I'll be back broadcasting again by May. Right now we're closing in the middle of April, I think, sometime, and then we've got to move, and it's a 2-hour move, and then we have to get this house ready to sell, and it's a pain in the butt. But once this house sells, then we can start building the new studio. So I won't have it'll be new to you guys and it'll be new to me, but it won't be the final studio. The final studio that I'm building is actually like a 21 by 30 foot room with, nice. There'll be desks set up and filming areas and the whole 9 yards. So I want to expand on a couple of my channels that I have, and I want to bring a better production value to the Patreon folks, the site that you have up there now. So we just want to just push even farther into helping photographers realize their dreams. So that's what I do. So
awesome. So you can follow them over there. You can follow them over on theexplorographer.com. Where you have all your links to all the different social media you're on and everything else, and you have your photo tool store there now with Luminar stuff also, right?
Yeah, we're doing the Luminar stuff, and we have Aurora, and I'm going to be developing for some more stuff for On One, and also I'm just basically right now I'm kind of up in the air. I'm using Phase 1 Capture 10. I don't know. They have a weird naming thing. But anyways, this specifically for my Sony cameras. And I'm seeing their processing image is a huge leap forward in quality. So I'm really seeing some amazing color and skin tones and everything else out of their software that I don't see out of Lightroom or even Luminar. So I've been playing around with that a little bit lately. Now, they don't have all the bells and whistles, like they don't have all the presets and all that kind of stuff, but they do have room to develop some of that stuff. So I might be putting some things together with that software as well. I just want to expand the store to cover several different programs, because I know there's a lot of folks out there. There's stuff in there now for Photoshop, for Lightroom, for Aurora, and Luminar, but I don't have anything out there for On One and that kind of stuff. So I want to do that.
Very good. All right, that's the end of show number 23, and the end of the best of 2017 images. We'll be back in a Sunday in the future. I'm not sure exactly when, but I'll post it whenever we do that. So until next show, keep shooting. Good night, everybody.
Good night.